Highlighting the cost of eviction, a new study finds that an eviction, a single eviction, can cost a landlord upwards of $8,000 on average. I'm Tony, and this is Real Estate Investing and Landlord News. Alright, so I have an interesting article for you today, and it's going over the true cost of evictions for landlords. So all of those morons out there who say that landlords, they're evicting tenants willy-nilly, that we're somehow coming out as winners going through the eviction process, they're just wrong. They're dead wrong, okay? Every single eviction that I have gone through has cost me money, and some of them thousands of dollars. Now, on average, they're finding that landlords are spending between $2,500, or they're losing between $2,500 and $8,000. And I say spending because we're not just talking about the money that they are spending to go to court, okay? We're talking about lost rent as well. So in terms of lost rent, repairs, legal fees, etc., everything all together, depending on where you are in the U.S., on average costs between $2,500 and $8,000 for a landlord to file a single eviction. So, you know what? Huge problem. I want to bring a light to it because people think that we are evicting people for no reason, and that's just dumb. So before I get into the article, go ahead, hit the like, subscribe button, maybe leave a comment down below. Let me know what you think. So as a landlord, how much does it cost you, or how much, let's say how much is the most it has cost you to evict a tenant before, okay? Me personally, I was, with repairs and everything, close to $7,000 for my worst one, okay? And keep in mind, I'm in a landlord-friendly state where I was able to get rid of the tenant relatively quickly. I imagine it can go into the tens of thousands, if not over six-figure amounts in some places. But anyway, let's get into this article. I'm going to tell you exactly what it says. This article is coming from NSCNewsline.com, and it says, new research finds evictions rarely result in wins for landlords or tenants. And I've mentioned this before. We're not winning by evicting tenants. We don't want to evict tenants. All we want is our properties back, or our money that is owed to us, or both, okay? But evicting a tenant is not something that is beneficial to us. And we are basically, by evicting the tenant, we're cutting our losses. We're making it easier for us to get back on our feet. Now, for the small mom and pop landlords who own one property, this sort of hit can destroy your profit for years to come, okay? But for the bigger landlords, they might be able to write it off based on the income they're getting from their other properties. But overall, these are things that are awful for your finances. So let's get into the article and see what it says. Eviction filings are rarely a win for landlords, according to a new research brief by the Legal Services Corporation titled Beyond Eviction: Landlords as Essential Partners in Housing Stability. Despite common perceptions, eviction proceedings seldom result in landlords recovering back rent and often lead to prolonged income loss, the study's author said. A single eviction costs landlords on average $2,500 to $8,000, they said. Even with a court judgment in their favor, landlords struggle to collect the rent they are owed, particularly from tenants with limited financial resources, the author said. Research suggests that fewer than 10% of landlords successfully collect all owed back rent after a judgment in their favor. And I can speak personally on that. I've almost never recovered the money that is owed to me by tenants after an eviction. Okay, I've done it one time, and it wasn't even the full amount. It was a partial amount. And, simply put, I rent to low-income people. Low-income people rarely are going to have enough money to actually pay you the money they owe you. So the best that you can hope for is to get them out as quickly as possible, get a tenant into your property who is paying their rent as quickly as possible. And so that's why you cannot have a system set up like they do in places like New York and California, where it is hard and takes a very long time to evict a tenant, because it will cost you tens of thousands of dollars and you will never be able to catch up. The best I've seen is, I finally was able to get back on my feet after I sold my property. You shouldn't have to sell your property. That's like saying, my business lost money for 10 years straight. But when I sold the business after 10 years of financial difficulty and trouble, then finally I was able to get back on my feet. No, nobody operates a business in that manner. You should be able to operate your properties and your rental business based on the cash flow that it generates. And you can't do that when you have tenants who are not paying rent. And this is something that, it makes common sense if you really think about it, but these tenants and these advocates, they don't understand it. They don't understand why a business needs cash flow. They are dumb, okay? And they want you to live in some sort of fantasy world where, 10 or 20 years from now, when you sell your property, you'll get your money back. Oh, shut the heck up with that garbage. For tenants, the eviction process causes them to fall further behind on their rent, face possible homelessness, and struggle to find housing and work because of an eviction on their record, the author said. More than 1 in 3 renter households experiences a housing-related civil legal issue each year, they said. The LSC brief is part of a congressionally directed study to investigate the unmet legal needs surrounding eviction in the United States. Beyond Eviction, Landlords as Essential Partners in Housing Stability is one of several briefs produced as part of the study. A final report will serve as the culmination of the study. And so I find it funny that they think, eviction is what will lead to possible homelessness and struggling to find housing and work and all these old problems, right? The eviction is not the cause of these problems, okay? Eviction is a symptom. It is a symptom of a completely different issue, and that's what they are forgetting, okay? The financial instability of people is due to numerous factors, okay? Numerous factors that can't all be explained in one small, easy way, okay? But the number one thing that we need to think about here for financial stability is financial education. People need to spend less money than they earn, okay? People need to have emergency savings. People need to not buy things that they don't need, be it alcohol, be it big screen TVs, be it, just shopping online at Amazon. If you are buying stuff you don't need and you don't make enough money to pay for it, if you're buying stuff on credit and then you can't pay your rent, then is this the landlord's fault? The eviction is a symptom of these bad money habits or a lack of income, where you could be working and making a good living. If you were working full-time, maybe you're choosing not to work full-time. Maybe you are choosing your lifestyle. Remember, this is up to the individual. This is not a societal issue we're talking about here. There are, and I remember this, okay? So I used to be very low income. I used to work at Walmart from the time I was 20 until the time I was 27 years old. I worked full-time on the overnight shift at Walmart, store number 2855 in Shawnee, Kansas, okay? I was an overnight grocery stocker, very low income. And I saw the truth behind, why some people, they do just fine making very low wages and working crappy jobs, and some people struggle. And what did it all, where did it all come from? And it's every individual, they had a different way of using their money. So me personally, I was driving super cheap used cars. Okay, I was shopping at the thrift store. I was grocery shopping. I was doing everything I could to not spend money. I was living on the cheap, right? And I had coworkers, on the other hand, who, they were making car payments. They always had to have nice clothes. Some of them smoked. They spent a lot of money on tobacco. Some of them would go out and drink every Friday, Saturday evening. And so they had a lot more expenses, and we were the same, in terms of, I was single, he was single. We both were working at the same job, making about the same amount of money, right? But my expenses were so much lower, and I put money aside, trying to save, and they did not put any money aside. So does it surprise you that this person over here might be going through an eviction when they are, spending their money in radically dumb ways? Not only that, but after a while, I eventually found a better paying job, whereas this person continued to work in their low income crap job. Okay. So, we can't just blame society and say, oh, well, you know what, the government or the landlords need to step up and make sure that these people have good lives. No, these people need to take responsibility for their own situation. And the only thing I think is that a good financial education, you can give the people the information. If they choose not to use that information, that's on them. Okay, we cannot force people to do anything they don't want to do. If they don't want to put money aside, if they want to spend every penny they got right now, that's their choice. But we shouldn't have to pay for it. But what do you think? Okay, go ahead and put a comment in the comment section down below.